So, this may sound a little weird coming from a die-hard Star Wars fan like me. See the tattoo? I'm a bit of a fan. But what I want to know is, why is so much science fiction so heavily focused on combat? I mean, come on. It's right in the title. Star Wars, right? Wars. It makes sense. And then you've got something like Babylon 5, which, I mean, there's a fair amount of combat in here. It certainly has to do with a war, right? And then you've got Farscape, has its fair share of combat in it. And I mean, Battlestar Galactica, it's right in the frickin' name, Battlestar, right? And yeah, this is the original, fuck the new one. But, I mean, I've also got this one right here, okay? Star Chaser, The Legend of Orin. This is the most delightful animated Star Wars ripoff you will ever see. It's fucking brilliant, okay? So, you've got all of that. But then you've also got, I mean, books. We have, what do we have here? This is the Honor Harrington series, which is basically a female Horatio Hornblower in space. Yeah. And then you've got, I mean, come on. Ender's Game, right? It's all about a kid who goes to this battle school to learn how to be a military commander. Now, mind you, as good as this book is, there are times I seriously consider getting rid of it because fucking Orson Scott Card's a psychopath. But that's another story. Then we have here, okay, I love these books. Lois McMaster Bujold, amazing author, and she wrote this awesome series about this guy named Miles Vorkosigan, and he's like from this sort of vaguely militaristic culture. And but he's been crippled by this toxin attack that happened to his mother while he was in the womb, right? And so he's never been much of a soldier, and he ends up more of a covert operative. But there is tons of combat in these books, maybe a bit less towards the later part of the series, where it gets more into intrigue. But there's a fair amount of combat in there. And then we've got the Serrano books by Elizabeth Moon. And these are pretty military-centric, especially towards the end. And, I mean, okay, more Honor Harrington, sure. Starship Troopers, Robert Heinlein. You can tell this is a very well-loved copy. But, yeah, I mean, come on. Starship Troopers, that's like the epitome of science fiction combat. And then you've got shit like Battletech, okay? All combat, every last bit of it. And, I mean, we've got, hell, my webcomic, right? It's all guns and spaceships and stuff. I mean, I'm not immune. Here's another webcomic that I read, Angels 2200. And, I mean, that's all like spaceships and blowing them up and stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, let's face it, our science fiction has a tendency to be very, very combat heavy, combat oriented. And there's stuff out there, I know there's stuff out there that's not quite as combat heavy, but it seems harder and harder to find. I mean, okay, one of my favorite movies, this is from 1986 or so, I believe it's 86. It's called Explorers, directed by Joe Dante, amazing director, same guy who did Gremlins, by the way, and Inner Space and a few others. This is about these kids, and by the way, that's River Phoenix right there, and Ethan Hawke, his first movie ever, right? And probably his best, I hate to say. But anyway, yeah, it's about these kids who start having dreams of circuit boards. And, because one of them's a scientist, River Phoenix's character, they build the circuit boards, and it turns out to be technology for them to build their own spaceship, which is this funky thing. They build it out of a tilt-a-whirl. And they go meet the aliens that sent them the dreams. And it's an amazingly fun romp. Yeah, it's largely aimed at kids, but this has been one of my favorite movies ever since it came out. Adore this flick. And there's really no combat in it at all. So yeah, that's definitely worth looking at. And then there's this author I really like called Spider Robinson. And this is probably his most famous series, the Callahan's Cross Time Saloon series. It's basically about this bar on Long Island. I'm pretty sure it's Long Island, where all kinds of crazy shit happens. And it's definitely worth a look. I mean, aliens show up, there's like ghosts and shit. I mean, you gotta read it to understand it, but amazing series. And there's like 10 or 12 or 15 of them in the series. It's worth checking out. Also by the same author with his wife, you have Stardance, Starseed, and I cannot find my copy of Starmind. But yeah, this series is pretty amazing. It's about these people who start doing like these dances in zero gravity, and these aliens show up that communicate through movement, and so the dancers use this like symbolic language to talk to these aliens, and the aliens end up it's hard to explain. They don't exactly grant these people powers, but there's this like sort of gel stuff that can infuse a person and allow them to exist out in space and gives them like the ability to communicate psychically and stuff. It's a very interesting series. I mean, it sounds like a lot of woo-woo, but it's actually rather well written and pretty interesting. So I highly recommend those. And then you've got this guy, Frederik Pohl, and Nara Bedla Limited. Again, no combat in here either. The basic idea is there's this guy who used to be an opera singer, but he lost his voice because like one of his co-stars' kids gave him the mumps one day in like Venice or some shit. And he ends up becoming an accountant to the stars since he himself can no longer be a star, right? And so he ends up finding that one of his clients disappears after getting an offer, a performance offer from this really, really rich guy, kind of like the Donald Trump of the series. And so he starts investigating and discovers that this guy, who's this rich guy, has made a lot of artists disappear. And they end up on this satellite orbiting the star Aldebaran, which is Nara Bedla backwards. And, you know, they have like performances for aliens, but because it all has to remain a secret for various reasons, the artists who perform have to leave Earth permanently. Since this guy was doing an investigation and discovered it accidentally, he gets like kidnapped instead of going willingly. So it's actually a very, very interesting book. I highly recommend it. Also by this author, and Frederik Pohl, that's Pohl, and I can't find it for some reason. It must have gotten lost in the move, but there's this other book called Gateway that's absolutely amazing. Okay, you've got the sun, you got the Earth, and it's orbiting around the sun, right? Well, in perfect 180 degrees, so we can never see it because it's always behind the sun, there's this sort of asteroid satellite thing that aliens called the Hichi put there ages ago, and it is just full of these spaceships. Now, nobody has ever been able to crack the code of the navigation systems of these spaceships, but they figure out, after they discover this asteroid, that you can get into the ships, set a destination, even though you have no idea where it's going to be, and hit the go button. Now, one of a couple of different things might happen. Either you'll never return, and no one knows why, or you'll return, but you'll have like run out of food or something, and so you die on the way back. Or you get to wherever the destination is that you programmed and you find nothing there. Or you get there and you discover like another alien civilization that was abandoned long ago, like another Hichi outpost full of new technology and stuff. And when you come back, you as a gateway prospector, because the asteroid gets named Gateway, as a gateway prospector, you get royalties for the discoveries that you find. So the chances are really good that you will either die or come back empty-handed, but some people come back rich. And it's all about this one guy who goes to Gateway to find his fortune. It's actually a really good book. The rest of the books in the series, they're all right. And, you know, I don't want to spoil it for you, but the first book is awesome. Definitely worth reading. So there's plenty of science fiction out there that is not combat-oriented, but man, it can be hard to find. And there is so much combat in science fiction, and I find myself asking why. Please take the time to rate this video. And hey, if you dig what I do, subscribe. You might also enjoy my webcomic, The Adventures of Kinneara Baxter. You'll find a link in the info bar, along with a link to my Zazzle store. Buy a t-shirt today. And hey, if you hit that thumbs up over there, and then pray really, really hard, you might just get your own spaceship. Think about it.